Police encounter in July in the South Carolina city of Seneca ended in death when a 19-year-old man named Zachary Hammond was shot by police officer Lieutenant Mark Tiller. Mr. Hammond was in the car with a female companion and in the middle of an interaction with an undercover officer when Tiller showed up to provide backup. Hammond, who was white, is being mourned by his parents. They are demanding answers. The family's attorney, Eric Bland, accused the media of initially failing to cover the story because of the victim's race. Social media postings, primarily by people supporting the Black Lives Matter movement, has prompted mainstream coverage. My guest is Chenjerai Kumanyika. He is an assistant professor of communication studies at Clemson University, a familiar voice here on Uprising. He's one of our daily newsflash guest experts, and he's been following the story closely. Welcome to the program, Chenjerai. Thanks for joining us. Now, police have cast this issue as a drug bust gone wrong because Hammond tried to flee and to run over the officer. That's their story. But the question is, was it really a drug bust, or was there simply some marijuana found on the person of the girl who was with Hammond? The girl has incidentally been charged with marijuana possession and not selling drugs, right?
Right. Well, Sonali, first of all, let me say that, I've been involved in the Black Lives Matter movement for about a year now, since Michael Brown's death. And this issue has now come home to my community. This happened where I live in Seneca, South Carolina. And this is precisely what the family wants to know. They would like to, there's been 4 different police reports. And so there's an extreme sense of inconsistency from the police department. And the police department has not really released much of the information that needs to be released. So we actually don't really know exactly what happened in this case.
So the autopsy that was conducted has been able to reveal some details, and I understand that the family actually conducted their own autopsy, and it shows that the officer in question fired shots quite at close range through the side window that was open at Hammond. But the officer initially said that he was afraid he was going to get run over. If he was afraid he was going to get run over, he would not be standing to the side of the car. The car had been, in fact, boxed in by his own car. Doesn't that show a pretty serious contradiction?
It's a tremendous contradiction. I mean, first of all, the police have not released the first autopsy yet. The first autopsy was conducted on July 28th, and we have not seen it. We've heard a report about it. So the family's second autopsy was released. Now, the first autopsy claims, they kind of described it in such a way that it made it seem as though the bullet wounds came into the front, which would have been consistent with the first version of the officer's story. But as we, in the second autopsy revealed that no, we're talking about the posterior chest. The language of the chest is tricky here, because they can use that to try to say, well, it was the chest, so we assume the chest is the front, but the posterior chest is actually in the back, closer to the shoulder, and this is where the bullets actually entered. So that does contradict the way that the report was being discussed. And this is why the family is looking for the U.S. Justice Department, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the FBI to intervene in this investigation.